Hello guys, it's Xandra from Inspired Keys, and thank you so much for tuning in to yet another YouTube live teaching session. And as you can see from the title today, my teaching topic is about how to create rich harmonies in worship keys through secondary dominant chords. So there are some really big words and I'm going to break it down for you what they mean. But first up, I do want to thank Inspired Keys Academy member Rachel for asking this question. So she says she's really interested to use secondary dominant chords for worship. And it is a very cool thing to do, and it's also a pretty simple concept to apply. It sounds very theoretical, it sounds very music theory, grade 6 and up kind of thing. But really, once you understand it and once you apply it, and it's pretty easy to apply, your music really sounds a lot richer. I don't think the word complex is necessarily true, because it doesn't make it more complex all the time. I feel it enriches the harmonies. And in case you're not sure what harmonies mean, harmonies when it comes to music has to do with everything about chords. So when you play a special chord or a jazzy chord, we can say that there are some jazzy harmonies used in this song, for example. So today is all about chords, and if you feel like you're just playing the same 4 chords whenever you play worship songs and it gets a bit boring, well, good news guys, there are ways to enrich the way it sounds. So here's an example of a chord progression with no secondary harmony, secondary dominant chords. So something really simple like if I were to use secondary dominant chords, it would be. So there's the one extra chord right there in between. So it just sounds a lot richer. And by the way, if you're like, oh, what are you playing there? I wish I can see what exactly you play. Well, good news, it's all recorded on my laptop, and that video, which shows you exactly what I press, what keys I'm using, what chord it is, it's written out in notation in a treble and bass clef and a music stave. That is all available inside the Inspired Keys Academy. And if you're interested to join it, check the link below. And I happen to be running a week-long full of discounts for the annual membership of the Inspired Keys Academy, but it expires this Friday or Saturday, depending on where you are. So if you want to jump on board, guys, this is the time to go on to the Inspired Keys Academy so that you can take your worship keys to the next level. And you can read more about it at inspiredkeys.com/join. Before I start teaching, I also want to ask you to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Subscribe to the Inspired Keyboardist YouTube channel for more videos like this, and where I teach not just exactly how to play a song, but I also want to teach musical concepts based on all the years of my music education, so that you can apply them and start growing in your musicianship from whatever level you are at the moment. And if you're watching live, guys, type into the comments and let us know where you are from and what's your name, and I can give a shout out to you when I see and I scroll through the chat later on, because I will be teaching first, and when I'm done with the teaching, I will look through the chat. And if you have any questions, the best thing about showing up in a YouTube live session like this is so that you can ask questions on the spot, and I will be answering your questions with priority. So go ahead and type it in and I will answer it later. It could be questions about today's topic, or it could be about any other worship keys topic as well. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit that bell button as well, because that means you will be alerted every time I come on YouTube live, or if I post a new video, and you will be able to watch it first and participate with the live video. All right, guys, so now I am going to get started. Firstly, what is the meaning of the word dominant? Dominant in music theory actually means chord 5. So if it was C major, the dominant chord would be chord 5 of C major, which in this case is G major. If it was, for example, the key of D major, then the dominant of chord 5 would be A major chord. And that's a 5-1. And dominant is the word, it's the technical name, guys. It's a music theory thing. We kind of just grew up memorizing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is tonic, supertonic, mediant, and there are all these crazy terms, but I'm not going to throw it onto you. You just have to know the word dominant. And so in this particular case, I'm going to play everything in the key of C major, and then once you catch it, you can apply it onto any key you want. But if I'm going to play it in the key of C major, then my dominant chord, or my primary dominant chord, will be 5. As I've explained earlier. So now I'm going to get to the point explaining the word secondary. Why the word secondary? So when you have a secondary dominant chord, it means you use the dominant chord for another chord that's within the same song. Okay, so let's take an example chord progression from, and this is like a typical chord progression in worship songs. It's a 1, 4, 6, 5. Sorry, I think it's a 1, 5, 6, 4. Yes, I prepared a 1, 5, 6, 4 instead. And an example for this will be Forever by Bethel Worship. So, dun, 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 dun. Right? So that's 1, 5, 6, 4 chord progression. Now, if I want to apply secondary dominant chords in front of every of these chords, that means every time before I play the next chord, I will play the dominant of the next chord. So it gets a bit confusing, but stay with me. So the first chord is chord 1, right? Now I could just go straight into chord 1, or I could play the dominant of chord 1. So what is the dominant of chord 1? It's chord 5. So instead of going into dun, dun, right, I'm gonna go dun, 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 dun. So that is a secondary dominant chord for chord 1. And then what's the next chord? Chord 1 was the first chord. So the second chord is chord 5, right? I could go straight on to chord 5, dun, dun, but that would be a bit too simple. So if I were to add a secondary dominant chord, that means you ask yourself, what is the dominant chord of chord 5? Because we're about to go into chord 5. And here we are. If you need to think, you're like, I have no clue how to figure that out. Well, guys, it's really simple. First, the dominant chord is, chord 5 is a G. So if you're wondering what's the dominant of chord 5, you just have to go up a fifth from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there you have it. You worked it out. It is the key D here that I'm playing. I'm playing the note D, which also means that the secondary dominant chord of G is a D major chord. So now I'm going to sneak in a D major chord before chord G. Okay, so at first it was C chord into G chord. Now I'm going to play C and then D chord and then G chord. And that D chord in between them is the secondary dominant chord. So now I'm going to go, instead of just 1 into 5, I'm going to do 1 secondary dominant chord. So I hope you heard that. It really makes the music a lot more rich. So we're going to go on to the next chord now, and that's chord 6. 6th chord would be an A minor. What is the dominant of A minor? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is an E. So you have a choice in this case to play E major or E minor. So instead of going from 5 into 6, I can do 5 secondary dominant chord, which is 3, 6. So basically it means it is the dominant of the chord, the next chord that you play. So every chord that you play, think what is the dominant of that next chord, and then play that dominant of that next chord and then the next chord. So now we're done with chord 6. We're going to go into our last chord, which is chord 4. So what is chord 4? It's F of, because it's E major, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, C, D, E, F, so F major. So what is the dominant of F? It would be a C. So now I'm going to play a C chord and then an F chord. So instead of going from 6 to 4, I'm going to have a 6, 1, 4. Okay, so I don't know if you've already noticed by now, but my secondary dominant chords tend to be a little bit on the shorter side. It doesn't have to be, it's really flexible depending on how you want to play it, and you can try it out and see whatever works. But really we're just trying to enhance, we're trying to enrich the harmonies here. These are really not necessary stuff. You don't have to play secondary dominant chords, but if you feel like you want to enrich the way things sound, then yes, secondary dominant chords are fantastic for adding flavor and adding enriching the harmonies. So here I am, I'm going to play 2 versions of the same chord progression one time, boring, no secondary dominant chords, just the 4 main chords. And then the second version, I'm going to add secondary dominant chords so you can hear the difference. So the actual chord progression, once again, is 1, 5, 6, 4. So here we go, 1, 5, 6, 4. Now I'm going to add the secondary dominants. So what's the dominant of 1? It's 5. So I'm going to play a 5, 1. 5, 1. And then the next one is a chord 5. What's the dominant of chord 5? It's 2. So I'm going to play 2, 5. What's the next chord? 6. So what's the dominant of 6? It's 3. So now I'm playing 3, 6. And the next chord is chord 4. So what is the secondary dominant of 4? It is 1. So I'm going to play 1, 4. Okay, so if I'm going to just fancyify it a little bit, because that was really just pure chords to let you hear how it sounds, but if I were to really jazz it up in a worshipful kind of way, then I'm going to play it in this way. So once again, I'm going to do it 2 versions. First time, no secondary dominant. Second time with, and then you can hear for yourself how enriched the music is. Dominant chords I'm using are really like to punctuate something before getting onto the chord, and I just feel like it makes it sound so much richer. So that's really an awesome thing about the secondary dominant chords. Now that was the first example. I'm going on to a second example so I can use some different chords, and then you have a better idea of understanding how to use it for more chords. And just in case you are wishing that you can see a handout to understand what it is I'm saying, well, the handout with exactly what I'm playing and writing out the chords and figuring out, calculating what the secondary dominants are, that handout is also available inside the Inspired Keys Academy, and you can click the link below to join, and be sure to catch on to the discounts that I'm running for this week so that you won't miss out on joining the Academy at a discounted price. Okay, so guys, I'm going on to the second chord progression right now, and the second chord progression is from the song Hosanna from Hillsong, and the chords are 6, 1, 2, and 6 minor, 1, 2 minor, and 3 minor. So now let's figure out the secondary dominants. The first chord is 6 minor. So what is the dominant of that? It would be a 3. So guess what? 3 happens to be the last chord of that progression. So in a sense, I don't have to play another 3. Okay, now I am going into chord 1. So ask yourself, what is the dominant of chord 1? It's 5. So that's a 5-1. And then the next chord is a 2 minor. So you can think, what is the dominant of a 2? It's a 6. So sometimes, guys, if it gets a bit complex, just take a pencil and take paper and write it down so that you can prepare for it and just play. You don't have to think on the spot when you're playing. So now I'm going to play a 6-2. Instead of just a 2, I'm playing 6-2. Sorry, let's try it again. Okay, so it's a 6, 2, and then the next chord is a chord 3. And so then you think, what is the dominant of chord 3? It's actually a 7, and 7's a very tricky one because it's actually a diminished chord. It doesn't sound great, but if I were to be strict about doing secondary dominant chords, I will have a, which is a 7 diminished into a 3 minor. So there we have it, one time with no secondary dominant and one time with, it goes like, instead of just a 6, 1, 2, 3, I played a 3, 6, 6, 6, 6, 5, 1, 1, 1, 1, 6, 2, 2, 2, 2, 7, 3, 3, 3, 3. So every time I have a chord, I preempt it with a secondary dominant chord. So really, that's it, guys. That's how simple it is. The thing is, you want to be creative about how you use it. So if you feel like, you know, you're the only keyboardist because you are playing for like an extended period of time and you're getting very tired of playing the same 4 chords. So this is more for churches where you guys do more free worshipy stuff, and also particularly when you're playing by yourself, so you don't have to worry about other people in the team, then you could sneak in a couple of these secondary dominant chords and it would probably sound pretty good. Now the problem with this is there are 2 things I want to caution you about. First, I don't think it sounds good to do anything fancy too much. This is something I say all the time. Go watch my other videos. I say you can have too much of a good thing. So even though this is awesome, it makes your harmonies very enriched and it sounds cool and everything. But if you do a bit too much, it can sound very clunky as well. So I'd rather you use it sparingly. And for me, I would throw it in only at specific sections. There are some secondary dominant chords that I feel are not necessary or maybe don't sound good. So use your discretion. So my discretion might go like, nah, I don't think it's necessary to do that 7 into the 3. So then I probably would skip that because I don't think it's adding to the music. In fact, it's kind of like doing it for the sake of doing it. And then you end up just complicating the music instead of making it better and enhancing the worship experience. So that's something I want to caution you about. And the second thing is, do not decide to do a secondary dominant chord suddenly if you have worship team members, because you know you've got a guitarist going, you've got a bassist, you've got other people in the team. Maybe the drummer doesn't matter so much because the drummer isn't actually playing chords or pitch in general. But when you have other instruments and they're all following a certain chord progression, using the same chord sheets that you guys use in your church, and there you are suddenly wanting to add secondary dominant chords, and everyone else isn't, then you might risk making the music sound not in sync, because people can hear that, hey, you know, we're sounding a bit split here, like the pianist is doing all these fancy punctuated chords before certain chords and everyone else is just doing normal stuff. And what you end up having is possibly any clashes in the music, and whenever you have clashes, it just doesn't sound good. You get notes that don't match with others, and you are out of sync, and it just doesn't sound as good as it could be. So I'd rather you sneak in your secondary dominant chords in a way where you are playing by yourself. Okay, you don't have to worry about someone else playing out of sync with you. You are by yourself, and you decided, hey, you know what, I've played this chord progression 8 times now. I think it's about time to add something different. Sneak in a secondary dominant chord. You don't have to do it for all 4 chords in a chord progression. Use it for 1, or use it for 2, and use it for only about 4 repeats, and then don't do it anymore. So it's just one additional cool thing up your sleeve in your musical toolbox that you could use whenever you feel like the music's getting a bit boring and you want to enhance stuff a little bit. So there you have it, guys, how to create rich harmonies on the worship keys by using secondary dominant chords. If you have any questions about this, be sure to leave it in the comments below. Inspired Keys Academy members, feel free to put it into the Facebook chat group what you think about today's video. Now, also, guys, be sure to access the handout and the specific notes and keys that I played that video. That's all available inside the Inspired Keys Academy. So go get that if you want to get access to that. It's really simple. You just need to join the Inspired Keys Academy, and I'm making it easier for you by running a week long of discounts for the annual membership, and the discount codes are right below. So don't miss out because it expires. Today's already Friday where I am. It expires today, but for some of you who are in other countries and there's a time zone difference, it might only expire for you tomorrow. But the bottom line is, the faster you join, the earlier you join, the more discounts you get. So I look forward to answering any questions that anyone might have left at this point. I'm just checking. Alrighty, guys, I don't have any chat response, but I want to thank you so much for watching. Thank you. Oh, cool. Adam says, thank you, that was interesting. I clicked the bell for the first time ever. Awesome, Adam. Thank you so very much. Guys, just type any comments you have in the chat at the moment. David Franklin's in the house. Hello. David says, is this something you practice at home first before you do it in a worship setting? Cool. David is an Inspired Keys Academy member, and he's asking if we practice this at home. And I definitely think you should. In general, when you want to do anything on stage, you should definitely be very familiar with it first. To get to the place of being very familiar, guys, you just got to put in lots and lots of hard work at home. So there is a Chinese proverb that I grew up with, and it goes something like 台上1分钟台下10年功, and it just sounds like, whoa, crazy stuff, but it actually just means when you're on stage for a minute and that person looks so cool, you're playing on stage awesome, like you're a prodigy and you are sounding virtuosic and everyone goes, wow, you must be a genius. Actually, the truth is you have worked hard for 10 years. So 10 years of hard work translates into 1 minute's glory on stage. So if we apply that in our worship keys playing as well, it really comes forth, guys. There's really not a lot of shortcuts that you can do, but you can shortcut the learning process from having to figure things out yourself. Instead of just wasting time finding YouTube videos and figuring things out, you know, wondering what to do and Googling, you could join the Inspired Keys Academy and ask your questions, and Academy members and myself will be very happy to answer your questions. And so yes, David, I definitely think you should practice it and get to the point where you can just play it like second nature. It's a little bit like language. If you're fluent in a language, you could just decide to enrich your language by using a more difficult word. So maybe instead of saying I'm a little hungry, you say I am moderately hungry. You know, like it's a fancy word and you could just throw it out there when you're having a conversation. You don't have to like practice it because you've probably already practiced it through your whole life speaking in that language. So yeah, this is the same thing, throwing out a cooler version of what otherwise might be a really boring version. So cool, guys. Do you have any other questions? Let me just look through the chat roll. Yep, that seems to be it for now, guys. Keep your comments in by typing in the comments section below, and stay tuned because tomorrow I'm gonna come on for another YouTube live session at 12 noon on Saturday, Melbourne time, and I hope to catch you there and answer your worship keys questions. So stay tuned for that one, but I shall sign off for now. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!